Hello everybody and welcome back to part 5 of our beginner tutorial series. So in this part, what we're going to be doing is looking at how to draw text to the screen. There's a huge number of reasons you might want to draw text to the screen during a game. The context we're going to use is we're just going to draw the score. So we're going to create a scoring mechanism whereby every time you kill one of these enemies you get, say, like 5 points, and we'll tally the points up and display them at the top of the screen. So the first thing we're going to do is create an object that's going to track our current score and is also going to control drawing it onto the screen. Okay, so I'm going to right click on objects and hit create, which will bring us back to our workspace, and create a blank object for us. And get rid of the room editor for now, we don't need that there. And I'm going to call this obj_score. Now normally when we create an object we would assign a sprite to it, but this is going to be an invisible object that's just going to manage some stuff for us in the background. It's just going to manage the score our player has at any time and just draw that to the screen, so it doesn't need to have a sprite of its own. Okay, so I'm going to add an event. I'm going to add the create event, so just when this object is made for the first time, get rid of that line of code, and I'm just going to write in here the score equals 0. And we've been through variables before. Okay, I've just created a new variable called the score and set it to equal 0. So as far as our game is concerned, after this create event runs at least, the word the score is equivalent to the number 0, and we can manipulate that and do all kinds of things with it. Okay, but before we control like adding stuff to the score and so on, we're just going to create the logic by which we actually draw that score to the screen. So in events here, I'm going to go down to draw. Yeah, there's a lot of different draw events, but we just want the basic draw event. Okay, when you create a draw event, it overwrites basically every object has a default draw event where it will draw itself to the screen. Okay, it basically just performs this function called draw self. So if your object doesn't have a draw event, this basically is its draw event. Okay, it will just do this one line of code by itself without you having to tell it to, and it will draw itself to the screen wherever it is at its particular rotation and angle, and color blending and so on and so forth. But you can create your own draw event if you want to control those things yourself. Obviously in this particular object, I mean, we don't even have a sprite to draw. We don't want to draw a sprite, but what we do want to do is draw our text to the screen. So this is the same event we would use to do that. Any drawing stuff you ever want to do, any rendering to the screen, you always have to do in one of the draw events. Okay, you can't do it in the step event or anything like that. It has to be in the draw event. It's similar to the step event in that it happens once every frame, but it's dedicated to drawing stuff for the object. Okay, the first thing we want to do is we want to gather a couple of coordinates. We want to find the coordinates for sort of the top center of the screen at any point in time. And because we set up views in the last tutorial, that view can move around the screen and it can be different at different times. So we can't just give it a coordinate in the room, like, I don't know, if it was like 1024, it'd be like 512 into the room for half of it. We need to work out dynamically on the fly whereabouts our view is in the room, and work out what coordinates we need. So to do that, I'm going to use what's called a temporary variable. Okay, I'm going to create one by typing the word var. So any variable that you create using this function here, var, disappears at the end of the event. Okay, so like you make a variable temporarily, do some stuff with it, and then you clear it from the memory at the end of the event. Okay, it's just a way of keeping things clean. So I'm going to make a var, and I'm going to call it cx. Okay, so that's going to be our camera's x position. And in order to get that, I'm going to set it to equal, just the same way as we did a variable before. We just typed a word and then typed equal. We do the same thing, only this time we put var in front of it. Okay, so we're going to do cx equals camera underscore get underscore view underscore x. Okay, and then open bracket, view underscore camera 0. Okay, so this grabs the camera ID of the camera that's automatically created for the view that we set up when we created a view last time in the previous tutorial. Okay, and it sticks it into this function, camera get view x, which means it's going to look at this camera, work out where it currently is in the room, where its x position is, and send that x coordinate to this variable. So that variable now, that word, means wherever our camera currently is on the x-axis, the horizontal axis. So now we just do the same thing for the vertical axis and do var cy equals camera underscore get view underscore y. Again, view underscore camera 0 semicolon. Okay, so that just gets the y coordinate. And now the last thing we want is the width of the camera, okay, in the room, which we already kind of know is 1024. So I could just type var cw equals 1024. But because like we want to set it up so that we're able to change the width of our camera if, well, I don't know, we wanted to make it bigger or smaller or whatever later on. We don't then want to have to come back and keep changing this number all the time, okay? So we can just use another function just to work out dynamically what our camera width is at any point in time. So let's say camera, so get view width, view camera 0. Just the same, okay? That's square brackets you have to use on the end of this when typing this 0, okay? Because you can have multiple views, multiple cameras, so you need to signify which one. You do that with square brackets as opposed to the usual curly brackets, okay? So after all that fussing about with variables, we can now actually draw the text to the screen. And it's only actually one line of code we need right away, although we'll add a bit more in a little bit. Draw underscore text, as you might imagine, and then what we want to do, we need to provide it with, hang on, you can't really see, let me bring this up here. There we go, so you can actually see what this function requires. It needs an x coordinate, a y coordinate, and the text that you actually want to draw, okay? And those coordinates refer to the room, okay, in the draw event, so it refers to a specific place in the room. So the specific place in the room is going to be based on these variables, based on where our camera is currently pointing. So cx is going to be our x coordinate, which is the current x position of the camera, plus the camera's width divided by 2. So by adding half the camera, we're going to draw it like theoretically in the middle of the screen, okay? Because it's wherever the top left of the camera is, that's our cx, plus half of the width of the camera gives us the middle. And then type a comma, you can see this moves at the bottom to show we're now typing in the y coordinate. The y coordinate is just going to be cy, so it's because it's just the top, where wherever the top coordinate of the camera is. Plus say 25, because we don't want to draw it right at the top, we'll just bring it down a little bit. So about 25 pixels into the screen. Then type string, open brackets, and then this allows us, what this does, I mean, we could just type like an actual string here, so we could type hello world, and if we were to run that, it would draw hello world at the top of the screen. But what we're going to do is we're going to type string as a function, which turns yellow as functions do, to allow us to provide a variable, and then the game will turn that variable into a text string that can be drawn onto the screen. So we're going to type the score, which as we know currently is 0, but because that's a number at the moment, the game doesn't recognize it as a string or as a piece of text that can be drawn to the screen. So we have to put it into the string function in order to do that. Then close the brackets fully, stick a semicolon on the end, and we are done with our score object for now. Before we go and plonk this in the game, we'll alter the enemy object so that it actually adds numbers to our score variable, so we can actually see it working. So let's go to object underscore enemy, and just in the step event now where we kill the enemy, when we say if hit points are less than or equal to 0, instance destroy, just open that out into these curly braces just so we can add more stuff in here than just the one line, just as we've done before. And before destroying the instance, we want to say with obj underscore score, the score equals the score plus 5. Now, what does with mean? Okay, with allows me to provide the name of another object, so it's the object we made a minute ago, object underscore score, and perform the following code with that object. So rather than, as I say, when I wrote instance destroy here, I'm referring to obj underscore enemy, okay, I'm telling this object to destroy itself. But if I were to type, say, with object player in here, this would destroy the player object if there was one in the room. All of them, for that matter, actually. But we don't want to do that. But yeah, all with does is it allows you to provide the name of another object, or even an object, a specific instance ID of a particular one if you have one, and do things or run code for that object from inside another object. I can open this out if I wanted to do more stuff into a set of curly braces, just as you do with if statements. But we only want to do the one thing. We just want to change that variable that we have, the score, which is usually 0, and add 5 to it every single time we destroy one of these enemies. Okay, so now I'm just going to plonk obj_score into the room. It doesn't really matter what layer we put it on since it's invisible. And then if we run this, we can see it's really hard to see. I'll zoom in on the video. But there's a 0 at the top middle of the screen. So if I kill some of these, you can see it starts going up. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and there's no other enemies in the game at the moment. So that's as high as it's going to go. That's our top score. We've mastered this game very quickly. Okay, but that's this is the default font you'll see that GameMaker's using, and it's not the prettiest in the world. But that's okay, because we can add whatever fonts we like, and that's what we're going to do now. So go ahead and right click in fonts and hit create, and this will bring us back to our workspace, and I'm just going to call it fnt_score, just the same sort of naming convention we've used with every other type of resource we've ever created. Okay, and I'm just going to pick whatever font, really, it doesn't matter too much. Let's make it nice and big, and yeah, size 24, that's fine. And we also want it to be white instead of black. The black's kind of hard to see on this background, so we're going to make the text white instead. But we don't do that here. You can type anything in here when you're making a font, by the way, as just like a preview of whatever settings, whatever font you've used, so you can kind of see what it looks like and so on and so forth. That size and style. But now that font exists, we just need to reference it in the code. So let's go to, where do we want to go? Object_score. Okay, so I'm double click that, just bring me back to this object. And just before I do draw underscore text here, I can say draw set font to fnt_score. Okay, that literally as simple as that. Okay, it sets the font to be used to that particular font. And then you can just change that on the fly. Like if we wanted to draw more text in a different font afterwards, we would just run this line of code again, pointing at a different font, and so on. Okay, so it'll set that font so it'll be much bigger and nicer looking now, but we also want to change its color. So I'm going to say, so draw set color with the correct spelling to C_white. Okay, there's loads of built-in constants for different colors. Okay, there's like C blue, C red, and so on. You can tell they're right because they change color to match. For a full list of those, you can check the documentation, or there's also functions for finding like very exact colors. So you can do like make color RGB and provide specific RGB values if you want a specific color, or hue saturation values, and so on and so forth. But we just want to make it simple, plain white, and we have a constant for that, so that's all we're going to use. And that should be it, really. So I'm just going to press F5 now, and we can see at the top of the screen there's a number 0, and it's big and white, and it's still a bit small. We might make it a bit bigger and nicer looking in a later episode, but for now this is pretty much exactly what you want. As you can see, every time we kill one of these, it goes up a bit. Okay, so there you have it. That's how you do simple text drawing. There's a million and one different uses for it. There's lots of other different functions and stuff that control different ways of drawing text, drawing it transformed and stretched and all kinds of fun things for you to explore. But that's just the basics of how you get started. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll catch you guys next time.